Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in to episode 4. My guest today is BJJ competitor and Phenom, Brianna Ste-Marie.
It's time to high five and fist bump. A jiu-jitsu podcast for the everyday grappler. Let's talk subs. Let's talk positions. Let's talk dominating the mats. Welcome to the Let's Talk Jiu-Jitsu podcast with Raymond Terrence.
My guest today is a 2018 Pan Am gold medalist in gi and no gi. She's a 2018 double bronze medalist at Worlds, double gold medalist at the 2018 IBJJF in Boston and Toronto, a 2018 German national gold medalist in gi and no gi, a no gi silver medalist at Worlds in 2017, and she's also a multiple gold medalist locally like the Ottawa Open, Ontario Open, and SAU. Brianna, let's talk jiu-jitsu.
Great. Can't wait. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being here. So I'm definitely going to take another sip of water because I had to go through your long list of accolades. So congratulations on all your success.
Thank you.
So maybe tell me a little bit about how you got into jiu-jitsu and how long you've been doing jiu-jitsu for.
Yeah, so actually you spoke to my dad the other day on your first episode of the podcast. When it was back when I was like 8 years old or something, my dad used to show me all these like kind of like grappling moves. That's what he told me. We were grappling. Show me all like, arm locks and stuff like that, head locks, the works. So I asked him if I could do this thing called grappling. And he looked all over Montreal at the time. Like, I don't know, if I was 8, it must have been it was 13 years ago or something. So there wasn't really much jiu-jitsu for kids in Montreal. So he offered me to do wrestling. But I was like, no, this isn't the fun stuff we do on the ground. Like, I don't want to do this, this other thing. Anyways, and then flash forward, my dad found BTT when they opened up in 2011. But then he was telling us he was doing jiu-jitsu, and I didn't know jiu-jitsu and grappling were the same thing. So I was completely uninterested. I was like, I don't want to do that weird thing my dad does. And then I met my current boyfriend right now at Saint-Hubert, and he found out my dad did jiu-jitsu. We talk about it all the time. And then finally I was like, okay, I'm ready to give this a try. And then lo and behold, it was that grappling thing that I always wanted to do when I was a child. So it's pretty funny.
Great. And were you doing any sports before you started jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, so I've been playing rugby since I was about 12 years old. And I only stopped about last year just because jiu-jitsu kind of took over. But I've always kind of enjoyed contact sports and that kind of thing.
Okay, great. So I know I mentioned at the beginning all of the things that you've been doing in regards to competition. So tell me a little bit about, so you've obviously been a very competitive person if you were doing rugby beforehand.
Yeah.
So I guess was it an easy transition going from rugby to jiu-jitsu?
I think in the sense that a lot of people when they start off, they kind of feel a bit awkward or uncomfortable, I don't know, climbing on top of a stranger or something like that versus in rugby, we're always doing drills with physical contact. So to me, it just seemed natural. Okay, go in this position. Okay, sure, no problem. When it came time to roll, I wouldn't be shy to just go for it. Even if I didn't have the technique yet, I could just, give it best shot because I wasn't shy to just jump on someone and, try and choke them.
So in competition, I guess you're a blue belt currently in jiu-jitsu,
yeah.
Soon to be purple belt, by the way, soon to be. That should be like a month away.
Yeah.
How long have you been a blue belt for?
So I got my blue belt in December of 2016. So it's going to be 2 years into this December.
That's great. And in those 2 years, you've been competing nonstop, basically.
Yeah.
Every single competition I could possibly find anywhere in the States or in Canada, you're pretty much doing. So I know you've been traveling a lot for competition. So the most recent one that you did was which one?
The most recent one was the Ottawa Open, which I was actually so grateful to go compete with less than a 6-hour drive or a 6-hour flight. So that was a big deal for me.
And you also did the Worlds recently.
Yeah, so in June 2018, I went to the World Championships in California.
Tell me a little bit about that and your experience at Worlds. Obviously, it's a bigger stage,
yeah.
More competitors. You actually have women's divisions with more than 2 people in your division. So maybe tell me a little bit about your preparation for Worlds, what you did, the type of training that you did.
So leading up to the World Championships, I was training quite a bit. I was training maybe 10 times a week. It was a bit hard at first. So obviously, I'm still a full-time student, but I know it was kind of hard going into the Worlds because I had won the Pan Ams in in March, I think it was. And I knew that kind of meant like, it was kind of like a reality check for me in a way, like, okay, I could actually, like, I have a chance at being world champion. So that was kind of like weighing over me the whole time, like, I could actually do this. I'm not just flying to California to like go and like, win one fight, lose the next. Like, I actually, like, I want it to be in my head that I want to go there to win and to be a world champion, So that was kind of like a big pressure for me going into it, but also a big motivator because I saw that I could hang like at the high levels of like my weight class at blue belt, So I don't know, kind of just all things going through my head.
And things went well.
Yeah. They did. To be honest, I'm not that satisfied with bronze medal because I think in the end, like, I'm not, people are, oh, world champion. I'm like, I'm not a world champion. I didn't win the gold. I won the bronze. Not to say that I don't respect anyone who comes home with like a medal from one of these tournaments. I think it's a huge accomplishment. But I think too that like, if I want to be the best, I have to like, I can't be satisfied with bronze. I have to, I'm a little upset that I actually, that's what I end up getting. But.
And do you find that when you competed at Worlds compared to competing at different venues, that the caliber was just that much more elevated, that the girls were a lot more skilled at the blue belt level compared to maybe some local tournaments?
I think it's also a matter of sheer numbers. Like, if you go to the Worlds, you're going to, like, at the Worlds, I think I had, like, 65 girls in my division. So you're guaranteed, like, 5-6 fights in order to get to gold. So sometimes it's honestly just, like, luck of the draw. Like, you get, like, you can fight the gold medalist opening round, the eventual gold medalist opening round. It's different, and all the girls there, like, people have traveled for this. I find that's, like, a big aspect, too. Like, if I'm paying like $1,000 to make this trip to California, like, I'm coming in hungry, like, I don't want to lose my first fight, and I think that's true of like a lot of girls who are there. They're like, everyone's traveling for this, everyone's coming down, everyone's like saying that like they think that they're good enough to be world champion. So even if like the caliber could be the same at a local tournament, there's that, it's just on another level because of that, because everyone's like acknowledging that this is going to be like a clash of the best at that level.
And were you able to stick to your game plan when you went to Worlds?
Yeah, actually, something that like just a transition throughout like my since I've been competing is that I found when I first started competing, I like didn't feel like myself when I stepped on the mats. Like on the mats at the gym, I would feel great. I would be like, I have a game plan, like it's working. And then I would step on a tournament and I end up doing like, I might still win. I was still winning medals, but like I would do like a white knuckle ride. I would like hold on to things. I'd be so scared to like even just like open up at all and to play my game because it was the pressures of the competition. And it was only really in the past, like I would say like 8 months that I found that like I'm actually stepping onto the competition mats and I'm rolling like at least like similarly to how I roll on the mats back home. And that was like such a great feeling for me. So when I went to the Worlds, like I did feel that way. I felt like I was like, okay, they pull guard, like, okay, great. Like I'm going to smash this guard. I pull guard, like sweep, like exactly like I do back home, pass, like I really felt like they could throw anything at me and I was ready for it. And I would respond in the same way that I do at the mats back home, which is something that's only really been more of a recent thing for me.
And training at BTT, do you find that your day-to-day class, the way that you drill and you do techniques, are you always focusing on competition training, or sometimes you go to Jitsu and you're like, I'm just going to have a super casual class, I'm going to learn something new and maybe look at this type of technique instead of constantly being in competition mode? Or excuse me, I also have a cold, by the way. Brianna also has a cold. I'm super thankful for her coming here even though she's feeling sick. Do you find that you're always in competition mode and that's what's brought you lots of success, or are you able to kind of lay back and just do a class of jiu-jitsu?
I think that like I'm always in competition mode in the sense that like, for example, every time I roll with someone at the gym, like no matter who it is, I'm always aware of like, I always try and like count the points in my head, I always try and think like, okay, I won that roll by 2 points in an advantage. I always try and have that in my mind because I think that like helps you develop your game and like know what needs to be done in order to win a tournament. That being said, like I'm only a blue belt, right? So I'm not going to be like, oh, this is my game and I can't, don't show me anything that's not my game because like, it's not going to benefit me. Like, no, I definitely go through periods where I try and incorporate like new techniques. Like I ask around, I try and fix problems that I've had. Obviously leading up to a tournament, like 3-4 weeks out, I'm just going to be drilling my best stuff. But yeah, 100%, like I experiment, but I always keep in mind, like, especially when I'm rolling, like, I'm always aware of how the roll is going. If I'm down 2 points, even if I'm rolling with like, you know, who knows who, like just another blue belt at the gym, like if I'm down 2 points and there's a minute left, like I'm gonna hustle to like even the score, you know, and like at least, and then try and get an advantage, win the roll, you know. It's always kind of running through my mind.
That's interesting, because me as a purple belt, I would have to say that I only started getting into that mentality when I've competed quite a bit, and I try to compete as much as possible. Definitely not as often as you in any possible way. And I haven't had that type of success. I even had the opportunity to go to Worlds, and maybe not that I didn't have the opportunity, but maybe I was kind of fearful of saying like, I'm definitely not at that caliber. You know what I mean? Like, I enjoy jiu-jitsu. I like competing. I'm a competitive person. But those guys are like, they're doing jiu-jitsu all the time type of thing. Yeah. But that's a good way to approach it. Say, hey, I'm going into jiu-jitsu. Yeah, I'll have a hard roll, but I'm always thinking, okay, I'm 2 points up or I'm 2 points down. So that way, when you do get into competition mode and you're at a tournament, that the thought process is still going through your head. So whether you're doing it at the gym or at competition, I mean, you're always doing it the same way, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Just like, I think that what's actually helped me like be really successful in tournaments is just being like systematic in a way, you know, like, yeah, I think that's so important. Like sometimes you see people like, they'll be like, I don't know, up 5 points at a gym, and then they go for like, sorry, at a tournament, not a gym. Yeah. So you'll see someone, they'll be up 5 points at a tournament, and then they go for like, I don't know, some kind of sloppy submission. And then next thing you know, they're getting their guard passed and mounted. And I'm like, how did you let that happen? You know, like, especially like I get it, black belt 10-minute matches, like, but in a 6-minute match at blue belt, I'm like, if I'm up 5 points, like I'm winning that match, you know, I'm
subbing. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I'm looking for the submission, but I'm doing it. I'm even with my submissions, especially, I'm systematic. Like I'm really like going through every little step to make sure to not like let anything slip. Like, because the idea of losing a match that I was like just dominating over, like, you know, like slipping up on like a transition to mount, or slipping up on like trying to go for an armbar, like, my God, I would hate myself after, you know. Like obviously everyone makes mistakes. I make equally stupid mistakes in other aspects, but. And
you're doing jiu-jitsu for a different reason. Everyone has their own reason for doing jiu-jitsu and their own goals. So you want to compete a lot and you want to do well. So you have that mentality when you're rolling. And I think other people also have are competitive in nature, but don't necessarily do a lot of tournaments. Either they don't have the cash to do it, because I mean, it's what, $130 sometimes if you're doing the IBJJFs. If you're doing something local, maybe $70-$75. I mean, we're in Canada, so if we're going to the border or we're going into the States, we're doing Boston, New Hampshire, New York. I mean, you have to take the exchange rate into consideration, all this stuff. So it's not cheap. The hotel, the before, everything, right? Yeah. So even if you're not competing at a lot of tournaments, you can still go into the gym and be like, I'm up on points. I'm doing well here. So I'm going to keep this position, and I want to finish the match and say to myself, hey, I won that match because X, Y, and Z. You've also done some sub-only tournaments, correct? Do you find that there's obviously a huge difference between sub-only and points? Is there one that you prefer over the other?
I'm going to go ahead and say that in the gi, I think I prefer the point system, because I find like there's ways to just like wait out a match and not get submitted in gi if you want to. So it's nice to have the points there so people can't just like, I hate when people fight for a draw, you know, like in those sub-only matches and like, oh, okay, the match ended in a draw, so I didn't lose. Like, there's always like one clear like winner and loser in those like sub-only matches, versus in no-gi, I think I prefer the sub-only format because I think it just suits the style of no-gi better personally. That's what I think. Because in no-gi, like, you could get your guard passed so much easier, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're being dominated, because you can also recover very easily, you know? So the idea that like you could be attacking, like dominating, attacking submissions in no-gi, and then they like pass your guard once because like, you know, things are slippery in no-gi and you recovered immediately after. Like sometimes I'm like, okay, that's not as fun, you know. I really like the fast-paced how fast-paced no-gi is, and that has a really exciting dynamic. So I think for that, I would prefer actually the submission-only format.
And you're doing gi and no-gi evenly on a weekly basis? Are you doing just as much of both, or?
I do about, mostly just because of what's available. We have like slightly more gi classes available. I do about 3 no-gi classes a week, and then anywhere from 5 to 7 gi classes.
And how is one complementing the other?
I find that like just like little details for like controlling and like your opponent, like that you learn in no-gi like have really helped my like apply to my gi game, because obviously you don't have the grips in no-gi, so you can't like paralyze your opponent just by like holding something down. You know, you really have to like figure out where to put your weight, like where to base out and this and that. So I find that's like I feel like training in no-gi has really helped my gi game in a way.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's your favorite position to possibly be in? We'll just say in the gi. I was about to say, be general and say just jiu-jitsu in general, but let's talk about the gi for a minute here. If you had to pick one position, you're like, if I'm there, I'm like golden. I'm like good to go.
I love me some close guard. I know
Really?
basic, but usually if I close the guard, things go well for me. So I'm going to have to say close guard.
And what's the reason for that? Is it just because you have great options from there, or you?
Yeah, I find there's just like, you have like unlimited options. Like I think our coach Fred actually once said, if you're in somebody's guard, you have one option. You have to stand up and pass. If someone's in your guard, you have 10,000 options, sweep, submit, like you name it, like a million different ways. And I think that it's just great because you can attack like so many submissions, so many sweeps from when they're in your guard. And then even if they stand up and manage to open the guard, like you can choose what guard you want to set up on them from the closed guard. Like you have so much like control from that position, so.
And you're pretty good when it comes to triangles. I think everyone knows by watching your videos and all of your high level matches when you compete that you tend to finish most fights by a triangle from either mount or from the bottom. Do you drill triangles all the time and that's why you're very good at triangles, or is it just something that you just picked up and you're like, wow, I'm just really good at this?
I think more the latter. Like it kind of just through rolling, like I ended up like starting to hit triangles more than anything else. Like it wasn't necessarily for me like practicing triangle setups and stuff. I think that's natural though. A lot of people, they like through training, they find one submission that they're kind of like just more apt at hitting and stuff. I know people always ask me like what your favorite submission is, and like whichever one I get in the moment, like yeah, I think maybe it might be my body type. Like for my weight class, I tend to be like longer than other girls. Maybe my legs giving me advantage in that sense. But yeah, I think it goes well with the closed guard game too, obviously, and stuff like that.
Do you cut a lot of weight when you compete, or?
Not very much, but I still find it very difficult. Like I cut anywhere from like 3 to 5 pounds to make it in the gi, and then like a bit more for no gi.
Guys do like one class and they're like, yeah, I just shed 3 pounds, like I'm good to go.
Exactly.
It's much harder, right, for you?
They'll be like, oh, the night before, like my boyfriend, he's like 10 pounds over, he's like, oh, right where I want to be, I'm like, go fuck yourself. Like, meanwhile I'm like 3 sauna baths deep, and like I'm still like a pound over. I don't know if this is like generalizing, but from everyone I've talked to, like women, they hold on to weight like more than men. So sometimes like I'll be eating less, I'll be eating healthy for like 3 weeks before, and I just still not shedding those pounds. So
do you have any tricks for women who are maybe competing now and having a hard time with weight cutting, or that maybe might be interested in competing and they're like, I'm going to need to cut weight?
Well, I think if you're like starting off competing, then like maybe you don't necessarily have to cut weight. Like when I first started, I just fought the weight I was at. Now I've found that I'm just more comfortable at the featherweight. Like the type of body types I encounter there just go well with my style. So I've chosen to cut to feather, but I've also been fighting like the past couple tournaments. I just moved up to lightweight because I didn't want to deal with the stress of cutting weight.
Do you feel better?
I definitely to be honest, I don't necessarily feel better. I feel like less stress leading up to the competition, but then for the competition itself, I find one of the benefits of cutting weight is that it actually like mentally prepares you, because it feels like you're like in a sense making a sacrifice to prepare your body for the tournament. So I feel like when I've cut weight, I arrive to the venue and I feel like, oh, I prepared my body for this, And not to say that I eat like shit if I'm not gonna be cutting weight. Like I still try to eat healthy, but there's not that sense of like sacrifice. And I find that sense of sacrifice almost like sharpens my mental game day of would be the thing. But
no, that's really interesting. I spoke about cutting weight with one of the sports nutritionists that's going to be on a podcast coming up, Pat Arrowsmith, and we were talking a little bit about cutting weight for tournaments, and he kind of said the same thing. I mean, he's just starting jiu-jitsu, hasn't been in jiu-jitsu too long, but the guy is very well recognized sports nutritionist, and he was saying definitely when it comes to your first tournaments, he's like, don't shock your body too much, because you're not going to be able to think about the techniques that you've learned or even pull anything off.
For sure.
Just go in your natural weight class and see what happens, and then afterwards, if you say to yourself, I love competing and it's something that I want to do long term, then start looking at, okay, well maybe I could cut 5 pounds to fall into another weight division where I might be the bigger person. But that's always a stress for people when they're competing, saying, do I cut or do I not cut? I recently did not cut because I just was lazy and I signed up last minute, and I enjoy pumpkin pie a lot. And it was over Halloween, and for 3 weeks I had pumpkin pie every day, and I wasn't even planning to compete. And then when I signed up, I was like, man, I've had a lot of pumpkin pie. How is this gonna go? I need to be on top so I could like just let all my pumpkin pie fat on like somebody's face. Cheese, So you said you're training, you know, a lot every single week. You know, you're doing about 10 training sessions. How do you find that your roles are going with other men? I think a lot of, you know, there's a big misconception that jiu-jitsu is just a bunch of beefy hothead guys that are just like, you know, rolling and sweating on each other. But you're finding more and more that are women that are getting into jiu-jitsu. And we spoke a little bit about that with Brianna Dang. What's your take on the, you know, level of women in jiu-jitsu right now? Do you find that there's more women joining jiu-jitsu, or?
I think so. Like, I see like at a lot of tournaments now, there's like big registration at the blue belt level and the white belt level. The only thing is, though, you see a lot of tournaments, as soon as you hit like purple belt and up for women, there tends to be like a lot of times girls register and then they're like, oh, well, there was no one in my division, so they have to like they don't end up competing, stuff like that. What I'm really hoping is that since there's so many girls right now at white and blue belt, that they all stick with it, and then, you know, when I move up to purple belt, they'll be like, you know,
they'll get promoted too.
Yeah, they'll get promoted too. And then
do you hear that, professors? Let's start promoting some of your women at blue belt, so that way Brianna can have people to fight with.
But I think that the sport is definitely growing for women, slowly but surely. Like I said, like there's always going to be that drop off rate, like even with men, you know, like at every belt, I'm sure like some people will decide not to continue with it. But I think that at least the fact that we have so many girls funneling into white and blue belt, that there has to be some sort of spillover into the higher belts, like with time. And
you do a women's only class at BTT, right? Which is completely free for women. They can come in and try jiu-jitsu, put on a gi.
Come on by.
How's that been going? Have you been getting a good turnout? Do you find that the women are sticking with it, even if it's, you know, once a week and it's a free class? Do you think it's growing some interest?
I think so, for sure. Like, we have a few dedicated ladies, and what's interesting is that the most of the women we get are actually mothers of children who are in our kids program. So they kind of see it and they like want to play around with it, see if they can do jiu-jitsu as well. And those girls are like, well, girls, I shouldn't call them girls. Those women are are super dedicated, and I have like, they come in, like they wake up super early, they bring their kids to the kids class, you know, and they stay afterwards, and then they do the women's class, like. And we have at least a group of like 6 or 7 women who are there pretty much every week.
That's pretty good. Yeah, I see that a lot. A lot of the parents that bring their kids to jiu-jitsu, some of them eventually start trickling into the adult class, which is pretty cool to see. Yeah. There's actually a family that I know pretty well. I was actually teaching their kids karate, and then when I stopped teaching karate, I was like, you need to go do this jiu-jitsu thing. And I got the mom into jiu-jitsu. I was teaching a jiu-jitsu class at the karate school once a week, just to kind of, you know, show the kids something different, to make them understand that, hey, you're not always going to be standing, kicking, and punching, that eventually you'll end up on the ground, and you need to know what to do, especially for kids that are in elementary school, grade school. You know, kids are mean, you know what I mean? They push each other, they shove each other, and the first thing that kids do is they go directly to mount. Right? It's like in their genetics.
It's instinct,
if I'm in trouble, I need to hop on top of the person.
And you go sit on them until they stop.
And just go sit on them until they stop, and maybe smother them a little bit.
Yeah.
So we're finding more and more parents that are bringing their kids to these kids classes. They're jumping into the adult classes. And this family, so the kids started in karate, so they moved over to jiu-jitsu. So the kids started getting really involved into jiu-jitsu. And then the mom signed up. And then the mom was like, well, if we get the dad signed up, we pay even less, because we kind of have we have a family package now. And now all 4 family members are in jiu-jitsu. The kids are doing the kids program. And then the mom and dad will come to the adult class, and the kids will sit in the lobby. Right. They'll play with other kids. They'll draw. They'll do whatever. And I find it super interesting. It's like they've found something that they could all do together, and something that they could share, which is really neat, which is something that you have with your dad. Yeah. And that is super cool. My dad is not a sports guy.
Right.
He's a kayaker. So he's been kayaking for many, many years. I've never really had an interest to kind of hop in a kayak and take kayaking super seriously because I am a big competitor. And yes, you can compete in kayaking, but it's not the same
niche,
thing.
you know?
Yeah, exactly. So it's something that I enjoy doing. Growing up, I did a lot of camping with my parents, and we'd go in kayaks and canoes, and something that we did together. But it wasn't just like a one-on-one. It's something that you do with your dad. So your dad being a black belt and like pretty hardcore from experience. Do you find that it's helped? You having him at home. Do you find that you guys talk about jiu-jitsu a lot at home? Do you guys do technique together? Does he give you advice? Do you take that advice in a positive manner? Or
I mean, we talk nothing but jiu-jitsu at home. I want to make that very clear. For the past, I've been doing jiu-jitsu it'll be 3 years in January. And for the entirety of those 3 years, that's what conversation at home has been dominated by. But it's good. Like, I enjoy it. Like, we come home, like, we'll talk about the class. We'll talk about our roles. Like, it's nice. It helps you analyze kind of like what you went wrong. Cause you're like, as I'm telling my dad about this role, I'm like, oh wow, I really should have grabbed that leg in that moment. That would have saved me or something like that. Occasionally then, he'll tell me to lie down on the kitchen floor and he'll demonstrate what I should have done in that moment. So, I mean, like anything though, like, when there's family involved, like there's times where I'm like, like, shut up, don't coach me, like, and then 2 seconds later, someone else, like another one of the black belts will tell me to do something. I'm like, oh, thank you so much, professor. Like, I value your advice, like,
your dad's like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Did your dad coach you in other sports beforehand? Like you were saying that you did rugby. Did he coach you in rugby?
So he was never like the official coach, but obviously that didn't stop him from coming and yelling Bloody Mary at either sidelines, but, yeah, it's always been kind of like sometimes obviously you don't want to hear it when it's your parents telling you. So there's been some tension like in the past with that. I tell him to stop yelling like a maniac. He continues to yell like a maniac. We go home in silence. But right. I mean, it all comes from a good place. So.
And he is your number one fan.
100%.
And I'm going to throw that out there. And something that people probably don't tell you. But from the outside, I have like super high respect for your father. And I attribute a lot of my jiu-jitsu to your dad. He spent a lot of time one-on-one with me. So of all the black belts, I would say at BTT, but he's really a guy that's really invested his time in me, and I really appreciate that. But you have to know that people see that from the outside, that your dad is your number one fan. And as much as like he'll drill you on techniques and maybe judge you when you're rolling, and I'll see him, he's standing in the corner with his arms crossed staring at you, and like he means well. Like he wants you to do great,
100%.
right? And he knows that you're bound for that greatness, and he does it from a good place. I think it's super cool. I think a lot of people out there wish they had that type of relationship with their parents, to have someone super involved and share a sport or anything with them to that level. I think it's super cool. And your sister is also, if I'm not mistaken, they're competitive. Do you have one sister or two sisters? No, you have
one sister and one brother.
Yeah. And your other sister is also competitive in rugby, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So my sister was playing rugby at Concordia, which is like at a varsity level. It was pretty high level. She played club rugby in the summer. Back in the day, played for Quebec and stuff like that. But yeah, if I could go back to my dad for a second, like just to agree with what you're saying, like I owe him so much because he's never hesitated to, let's say, like if I ever ask him for a ride that has anything to do with me going to like rugby practice in the past or going to jiu-jitsu, like he'll literally like have just gone home from somewhere else and like he has to go somewhere else in half an hour and he finds time to give me that ride if it's at all for me, like having to go to jiu-jitsu, having to go to school, this or that, like. And it's the same for my sister and her rugby practices and stuff like that. Like he's never like, if I ever call him, I'm like, listen, like I trained super hard, can you please, like I don't feel like taking the bus for an hour and a half, like he'll be there in a second to pick me up. Like it's honestly, I can't say thank you enough for that. Like he's never hesitated to help us out when it comes to sports. Like he's there watching every event, always, like everything like that for me, my sister, and my brother back when he used to do sports as well.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Do you do a lot of, do you attend a lot of seminars? Are you a type of person who learns a lot from seminars? We were talking before the podcast in the car when we were driving, and Brianna actually went to a Brianna Ste-Marie, seminar in Boston on the weekend, and we spoke a little bit about it. Have you done a lot of seminars in the past? Have you attended a lot of seminars?
I've done a few. Like I did Lucas Lepre when he came here. I went to Murilo Bustamante when he came, and Faria's seminar as well, like you just said. I mean, like I value seminars for sure. And I like at each one of those seminars, I like saw great technique that I was super grateful for. But in the end, like if it's it depends on the price, like sometimes I tell myself like, okay, I could go pay like, anywhere from $50 to $100 for the seminar, or I could go put that money towards a competition, a tournament, you know? So sometimes there's that kind of like give and take of where I want to spend my money in jiu-jitsu, because it does turn out to be very costly.
Being a student too.
Yeah, being a student as well, and like competing, like always having to travel and stuff. So yeah, it's like I attend the seminars when they're convenient, they're like nearby or something, but I don't like seek them out, you know, necessarily.
Right. And I think successful seminars are made of when someone comes, they focus on 2 or 3 things and they keep it super simple. I think there are some people who go to seminars and are like, I want to learn all the crazy stuff that guy does, right?
Yeah.
But the best ones are really the ones where they break down all the simple things.
Like one move broken down.
One move broken down in 1,000 different ways, but it's that one move that works the best for them. Right.
For
So
sure.
yes, you could show me how to do, you know, some crazy inverts, and you could show me how to do some leg locks and show me how to do, you know, this different lapel choke. But every time I see the guy compete, he does a Kimura really well.
Yeah.
He lands his Kimura all the time the exact same way. I want to know how you do that type of thing. And I think we need more of that. We need more black belts giving seminars and showing us the stuff that they do really, really well. Do you find that there's more openness now in jiu-jitsu of people sharing information and like their tricks of the trade around the jiu-jitsu community? Because I know back in the day, so I had just gotten a taste of jiu-jitsu in like 2008 when I was still competing in karate, and I just wanted to see what it was about. And when I got more involved in the jiu-jitsu community, people were very no, this is my thing, it's my trick, and I'm not showing anyone except for the people in my club. And I think that's opening up a little bit. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think like, especially with the internet, you know, like so much stuff is like on YouTube and stuff that you can't like, you can no longer be like naive enough to think that like you're the only one who knows how to do an armbar this specific way, you know? Like,
and it'll never get out there.
It'll never get out. Yeah. You know, some guy's going to see you do it in a tournament and he's going to post that breakdown on YouTube. So either way, it's going to get out one way or another. And now actually I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to make a buck out of it, right? Because so many of like the big names out there have their like online academies. So you pay like, I guess like a monthly subscription, and like I know like the Mendez bros have one, Keenan has one, you know, what's his name? Hodger Gracie. Like they all have these online academies now. So I think now that they've realized that these techniques are going to get out there, they're like, okay, well, we'll show you them, but in plenty of detail if you pay like, you know, a monthly premium, which it could be worth it, you know, depending on.
Are you subscribed to any of those?
I've debated it.
Okay.
But I haven't done it yet. Again, like my budget for jiu-jitsu is limited, so I've been focusing most of my money to go compete. But I wouldn't be opposed to just to signing up for one if like later. Yeah,
and I think a lot of that information that you can get it just on YouTube. You know what I mean? Like a lot of it is there. Like you said, people are filming, they're breaking it down. But I do think that every professor has their niche of things that they do really, really well. Yeah. And if they're willing to post that and break it down and maybe charge a little bit of money for it, people will pay. I would say people in the jiu-jitsu community aren't necessarily, not everyone is cheap, right? It is a very expensive sport, right? You're paying, so let's say you're paying over $100 a month for your membership, plus you talk about gis, right? So how do I have one gi? No, right? I have 3 gis, right? So if you're
I have 5 and somehow I still run out every week.
Exactly. You have to wash your gis, and they, even when you wash them, like they smell like shit and they're horrible. I have a solution.
Smelled good in 3 years, right?
Yeah, I have a solution though. It took me forever to find it, but I found a semi-solution. And I know there are some like jiu-jitsu soaps out there. You can go online, but I've never bought any because I don't know if they work. I found this product that's super common now, and everyone probably knows of it. And I'm just announcing it. Everyone's like, yeah, Ray, we totally know that. We've been doing it forever. It's like those little stones. They're like tied stones.
Oh my God. I've used a sample of those once.
And they look like candy, basically, right? And I put those stones in the wash with my gis, and when my gis come out, they actually smell good. If I wash my gis just with regular laundry detergent, they still smell like crap when they come out. So I think that's a good solution for people. I think I don't know what they're called. They're like Tide something, and there's some like knockoffs too. Yeah. But that's been helping a lot. But yeah, one gi is definitely not. And when you're thinking gis are what, I mean,
$200, let's say.
At least 200. Well, if you're buying just a generic gi, I mean, you could find one online for maybe like $60 to $100. $150. If you want something a little better quality, then you're spending $150. You want something with a nice name on it, you're spending $200. So yeah, it gets really expensive. So you said that you are a student. Do you also work part-time to try to fund your jiu-jitsu life? Or?
I do. I was working as a waitress like part-time here and there, and like the great thing about waitress jobs is that, you know, they're 1 in a million. So you can literally, I would get a waitress job, I'd work there for a few months, and then a time would come where I'd have a tournament where I'd have to travel. I may or may not get the time off, so sometimes I would be forced to leave that job, but then I could always find another. And waitressing is really good money. You know, you work a few hours, you make like $30 an hour with tips, you know. Just recently now though, I'm working with my sister and her boyfriend's meal prep company. Cool. So I go in on Sundays, I help out, and it's perfect. Like I work for the day. Aline's Plated Fresh, if anyone is looking for a service.
Plug it in. I'll give you a chance to do that afterwards. Well, that's good. Yeah. So how is your jiu-jitsu been going so far? Are you planning to do any tournaments coming up? Do you have anything lined up now? Or?
So the only thing I have lined up for sure is I actually just recently bought my flight to Lisbon for the Europeans in January.
Oh, cool.
So I'm pretty excited about that. I'll hopefully, if I pass this belt test, please Fabio, I'll be getting my purple belt on December 1st. And then, so it'll actually be potentially my first tournament competing at purple belt will be in January at the Europeans. So it's a big stage right away, but I'm like a strong believer that, you know, if you go in with the right mentality, it's like not like the jump is only as big as you make it, you know, like in the end, it's just jujitsu. Like these aren't going to be like all of a sudden like superheroes at purple belt. So, right. You know, hopefully it goes well.
And imagine if you do well.
Yeah, and then exactly.
Imagine if you do well.
And if I don't, well then hell, I'm in Lisbon, like, you know.
Why not? I'm super not informed where Lisbon is, to be honest with
Portugal.
You. Oh, it's in Portugal. Yeah. Wow. Oh. That sounds nice.
Yeah.
That sounds nice. We're in Montreal and we're about to get like 15 centimeters of snow tonight, and we're in November. So Lisbon sounds pretty nice right now.
Yeah, especially in January when there'll be definitely like 30 centimeters on the ground of snow.
Yeah.
So.
I'm curious. So you train at BTT.
Yeah.
You have a boyfriend that trains at Gracie Barra. Explain
my
to me.
forbidden love.
Yeah, explain to me how this works, right? So you have two people training the same sport in two different clubs, and we know that jiu-jitsu, there are politics in jiu-jitsu, and you know some schools are like, I don't like that school. I don't train with those people. Have you run into any issues with that? Do you find it works well? Do you get in any like conflicts with your boyfriend? Obviously, I'm not here to kind of bring up your relationship issues, but do you find?
Can I say all of the above?
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, there's obviously I've never run into anything serious. Like people make jokes. Obviously, it's natural. Like especially at BTT, we will poke fun at anything we can. So. I definitely hear jokes, and so does he, but no one's ever like actually malicious towards it. Like I don't think I've ever experienced that. I don't know if he has and just hasn't told me, but I sincerely doubt it. And in fact, if anything, like everyone who I've met from Gracie Barra has been like incredibly nice to me, incredibly like open. Like I've traveled with their team before when our team hasn't been going to a certain tournament. Like, yeah, I've been welcomed quite nicely there. And the same with him and at BTT. You know, everyone's, as far as I know, has been nice to him. Like. And then there's obviously like it's kind of nice almost to be at separate gyms because he can go off to his training, I can go off to my training, and then we can come back and we can even like we'll talk like about the techniques we saw, and then we have like puzzle mats. Like sometimes, you know, we'll trade. There's obviously every gym has like kind of a style that they're more like geared to, so it's kind of nice because I'll get the BTT style, you know, and those techniques, and then he'll show me stuff that's like, you know, a bit different, and then I'll show him what I learned, and like, well, I don't know if I should be saying this, you know, we're spilling each other's school secrets, but
that's pretty cool though.
It's nice,
you know, it's similar like what we were talking about before, how you have your dad that's in jiu-jitsu and this and that, and on top of it, you have your boyfriend. Yeah. He's also a high-level competitor. Yeah. You could totally plug him right now, by the way. You could totally do that right now if you want. But Lucas is definitely a high-level competitor for GB, right? And he's competing at a high level, so it's nice. You kind of, you know, get to go to BTT, get a taste of that, and then he can kind of take a look at what you're doing too and fine-tune it his own way also, right? What's your long-term plan with jiu-jitsu? You just want to keep competing? Do you think you're going to open up a school one day? Is that what you would like to do, or are you just taking it casually right now?
I'm not sure about like what my definite future is, but I mean right now like I want to be world champion. I want to be a world champion at black belt. So I want to just keep competing like every competition I can until then. And then afterwards, like who knows, I absolutely love to teach, like just doing the women's class. Like I really enjoy teaching others. Like I help out with the kids class too. Well, those kids do get on my nerves sometimes, but love them to death. Love you all. But yeah, I love to teach. So I think that it could be like a possible future for me, but I'm just not sure yet. Like I'm getting my degree right now in environmental studies. I'm not sure if I want to do something with that. Like, but either way, I know 100% like jiu-jitsu will have like a large role in my future. I'm just not sure in what shape or form. Yeah.
And you're teaching the kids classes, right? What age group are you teaching?
Originally I was teaching the toddlers, which were like super young, like 3 to 5 years old, you know, limited attention span. Now I've graduated. And now I'm teaching, I do the kids 1 and kids 2. So anywhere from like 6 to like 9, 10 years old. And then maybe a bit older in the second class.
And do you find kids catch on a lot quicker than adults when it comes to jiu-jitsu?
It's like sometimes you could tell they don't have like that body awareness that adults have. Like, so an adult, you could be like, I don't know, like, I can't think of an example right now, but sorry, okay, cut that out.
I'm totally not cutting that out. That's staying in.
But yeah, I know with an adult you can instruct him, like you can say like, okay, put your right knee over here, like you want to underhook this leg, you know, versus a kid, like sometimes if the position, it might not seem complex, but to them they're just like not aware of their bodies, so you actually like sometimes you have to go like actually place their arm like where it needs to be and be like, here, put it here, you know.
Right.
But that being said, like I've seen the kids like totally surprise me. Like they'll be rolling and I'm seeing them like bust out this crazy technique and I'm like, damn, like we're all screwed in a few years, you know.
And the kids who compete too is pretty impressive. You know, you brought the kids to a competition at the Ottawa Open and they did super well. I mean,
I was so impressed by them.
Kids, and I was very impressed by kids rolling and looking at you and listening to you coaching them. Yeah. Adults don't do that.
I know.
It drives me berserk. So I'll have teammates sometime that will go compete and they'll be like, hey, Ray, can you like, you know, sit in my corner and give me a little bit of, you know, strategy and coach me a little bit. I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. So I'll sit on the chair and then they're clearly in a bad position and they can clearly do something to get out of their bad position. And I am screaming at the top of my lungs, do this, do that. And they don't listen to me.
I know.
They don't listen. But I was super impressed that the kids were actually rolling and they were listening to what you were saying in the corner. Because a lot of adults don't have that.
You know what it is? I think the adults, like, because I've been there, you know, like you're in the position and you're like, someone's yelling at you, like, especially when I was like in my earlier days of competition when I was still a white belt, like, you know, my coach would be yelling to do something and I'd be like, oh, but like, he doesn't realize right now that if I do that, like, I'm going to get completely like, you know, my guard's going to get passed or something like that. But obviously he knows better, but as an adult, I think you think too much in a sense, you know, you're like, no, like he doesn't know, like I'm clearly going to get smashed if I do what he's telling me to do, like, and then you get smashed anyways, versus the kids, they're just like, oh, okay, like, you know,
I'll
just, sure, why not? And, you know, they also don't care. It's like, I feel like they might have a bit less pride, especially when they're younger going into a match. So, like, they're not as scared versus, like, I was saying at the beginning of the podcast, like, I used to do these white knuckle rides in my early days of competition. And it was just, like, this fear of opening up, and that would cause me to do worse in the end. With the kids, I feel like they don't have that. So, you know, if the coach says to do something, they're fearless. They're like, okay, I'm going to do it. Coach said to do this. They're not scared. Like, if I open up, I'm going to get passed. Like, they're not thinking that far ahead. They don't have that ego, I think, going into it.
Do you think that you're a coachable person when it comes to you competing on the mat and having someone in your corner? Do you actually hear what they're saying, or for you, this is my game plan, no matter what's going on around me, I block everything out? Are you capable of hearing advice while you're rolling and kind of adapt yourself?
Especially now, I think I can listen and I take into account. I do. That being said, like, and the people who coach me, like, they know this. Like, I like it like very simple. Like, I want like to know exactly how much time is left. Like every like, you know, minute and a half. I like to know exactly where the points stand, and then like, and they know it too. You know, they know when to talk, and then since we have like this like trust between each other, like if they're telling me to do something, I know it's because like I really should be doing it. You know, they don't just say stuff to say stuff. So when they tell me to do something, like I do it. I'm like, okay, they're seeing something, so I respect that, and I respect like the people who coach me are people I really respect on the mat. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do it. You know.
And we were very lucky to have Cascal teach at BTT, right? Came from Brazil. The guy, I could go on forever with everything that he's done, everything he's won at such a young age. I think he was, 25?
21 when he got his black belt. He's been competing at black belt for like
ever.
years now, yeah.
And how old is he now? I think he's 25 or something.
No, he's turning 30 actually in
Is he that
in
old?
February. I know.
Really? I thought he was 25.
He's got such a young soul.
Yeah, that's crazy. But I think getting instruction from him has changed the game for at least us in our
100%.
club. Do you find that it's really elevated your game, being able to spend more time with someone at that level?
Yeah, I think 100%. Like I owe so much to him. Just like even for like just motivating me to compete. You know, he's always he's willing to give anyone time who's gonna like put the effort back in. You know, so whoever that may be, like if he sees that you're willing to put in effort, like he will give you his time. And yeah, just with what I was saying too, being systematic, like he really showed me that like that's what you need to do in a competition. You have to be systematic. So like, and I've just tried to like kind of mimic his style too, you know, because he has that one style of passing, like obviously like 1,000 different variations off that one style, but you know he's systematic about it. So I try to embody that too, and I really just every class I'm like, okay, how do you do this? How do you approach this? Like, you know, and then I'll roll and I'll get a reaction off of what he told me. I'm like, okay, now if they give me that reaction, you know, I'm like, I value everything he tells me. Like I really try and like emulate his style and stuff like that. Yeah,
It's very unpleasant rolling with him, by the
it is
way.
yeah. I'm just like, and he has that very like a very basic style in a sense, like, you know, it's something like these crazy flashy stuff that you see more with like the Mendez Bros and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But then again, he's like, you know, best in the world almost. Like I think he is, you know, I think he is the best in the world. I think that it's just a matter of time before he wins that world championship. You know, he's been so close 2 years in a row. Like, anyways, it's
gonna happen.
Yeah,
I
respect how he takes such like a simple approach, and he's just like able to demolish like all the high level guys, you know.
And he encourages everybody at every single belt level, whether you've been there for a week or you've been there for a few years. Yeah, it's super high level. And when it comes to people wanting to compete or even not sure if they want to compete, having an instructor or professor push competition on people, not push aggressively, but say, like, I'll compete. Or, you know, there's a competition coming up. I'll put the poster up in my gym.
Yeah.
You know, I think that helps a lot to motivate people to say, you know what, if my professor's going out and competing, or if he's encouraging, and maybe he's not competing, but at least he's, you know, putting up a poster or telling us there's a competition coming up, I think it will push some people who might not naturally go out and compete. Maybe they'll be like, oh, maybe I will get up and do it. Because you find some clubs where competition is just, it's just not there, right? It's just people come in, it's very casual. They train jiu-jitsu. People want to learn jiu-jitsu and not compete, and that's fine. That's okay too. You know, we always talk about different people have different reasons for doing jiu-jitsu. Some people just want to go in casually. They'll never compete ever, and they'll go all the way to black belt maybe and just never compete, and that's okay too. But you might have some, you know, hidden competitors that just, you know, they don't have that encouragement. So I think that's really cool for clubs that do that. And, you know, especially clubs that might have multiple black belts. There aren't maybe tons of them out there. You know, you might be in a little secluded community and there's one guy, one black belt, and he's the only guy there. And if he doesn't compete and is not pushing it, then, you know, you won't get very far unless you're really driven. You say, well, you know, I'm going to do it. If no one else is doing it, I'm going to do it. Because I have to say that, you know, BTT is a big club, but I mean, not everyone competes. You know, do you find that the vibe when it comes to competition is good? Do you have enough people to, you know, train with, to spar with? Do you find that you're missing out on anything from the amount of people that you have or the quality of training that you get where you are now? Or
no, I'm super pleased with the level of the roles I get at BTT. Like, I think it's natural that in any school, like, it's going to be a larger population of like hobbyists versus competitors, but I still think we have like a very large population of competitors at BTT. And like I said, just having that like environment, like you were saying, that environment to like kind of motivate like potential competitors, like Cascal provides that, especially in his classes, as do the other professors. I just mostly attend his classes. That's why I'm saying that. And I find that, and he'll even make sure that like, if you're competing, you know, you have a competition coming up, that you're getting like all the roles you should be getting, you know. If it happens that you're sitting out, he finds you someone to roll with you, and he makes sure that you're rolling also at a competition level. Like, you know, like, okay, you two start standing up, like, and he'll watch, you know, he'll even like count the points sometimes and be like, okay, you know, you lost that one, like, you have to fix these mistakes, you know.
He's training you to compete.
Exactly.
Right.
Like, he definitely creates, like, if you need that atmosphere, he creates it for you. Even if like you're surrounded with like, okay, there's only 2 competitors in the class today, like, he still manages to get you a class where you're getting like crazy hard rolls and you're like in that like even just in that competition mindset where you go sometimes when you're rolling regularly, you might concede the sweep, you might like get yourself in a bad position. He makes sure that you're rolling with like saying that that's unacceptable and you're going to fight tooth and nail.
Especially if he's standing next to you, right? And he's nodding his head and he's like, yeah, you shouldn't have done that. And the things I've done
with him standing next to me yelling, no, up,
That's good though. That's a super good vibe to have. So you do travel a lot to compete. You visit other gyms. You're always dropping into different gyms in different places. How do you find gyms are very accepting of you just showing up at the door and saying, hey, like I'm competing. I'd love to be able to train here for a day. How have things been when it comes to traveling and visiting different clubs?
It's been mostly like a really great experience. To be honest, I love visiting other gyms when I travel. I kind of see it as like doing a competition, but without like, the like life-ending nerves, because you go in and you're rolling with like people in a competition. You step on the mats, you have no idea what the person's going to throw at you. Like obviously you could have like stalked them on Instagram or something before, but that's like limited knowledge. You have no idea what they're going to throw at you. It's a brand spanking new person, like, and they're going to come at you 100%. I find the vibe is very similar when you go visit a gym because there's like a bit of ego involved. It's like a visitor, they're at their home turf. I'd be the same if someone was visiting my gym. You want to kind of like show them where things stand. But that being said, like there's no pride. You're not going home like without a medal. You're not. There's nothing at stake, so you can have like these crazy hard rolls without any of the pressure. And I think that's like my favorite part about visiting gyms is that I roll with. You don't know what the person's gonna throw at you, but they're still coming at you like fucking hard. So it's a lot of fun, and everyone's been like. Every gym I've visited has been so nice to me, so welcoming,
Yeah, I tend to travel a lot too, and for work, and wherever I go, I always pack a gi with me.
Yeah.
And all the gyms that I go to, people are super welcoming and super nice. I've never had any bad experiences at the gym. Obviously, like you said, when you go in and you put on your gi and all the guys are like, I don't know you, and we know you're a traveler, so expect us to smash your face type of thing.
For sure.
So that does happen, but that's kind of cool because afterwards you get to, chat and socialize and you realize it's just part of the game.
Yeah, there's never any bad feelings after, either way.
One thing that I do suggest, and this is just me throwing this out there, I owned a school for a very long time in martial arts and karate. When it comes to BJJ, a school is a school and you're still a business owner. But if you have somebody who messages you or emails you and says, I'm coming your way, can I come train at your gym? And they show up, don't charge us a drop-in fee. Please do not do that. I'm telling you this from experience that I've had great experiences, and some schools have charged me drop-in fees, and it's part of the game. Business owners are running a business, right? So they need to make money. But if I plan ahead of time and I tell you I'm coming there, when I show up, you're charging me $20 to kind of just like do a class.
And if you're lucky, some places charge upwards of $50.
Is it that expensive in some places?
Like I understand. Like I'm speaking from like places that are like in really like popular cities like New York City,
California,
LA, California, yeah. And I get it because like it's legends that run these gyms, so for sure they get like a large.
And they must get a lot of people.
Yeah, influx of visitors.
Right.
So I get that. But then sometimes I'm like, I don't know if it's like a smaller gym in like a random city. I'm like, okay, you don't need to be charging me $50. You're not getting like such a large number of visitors that it's overwhelming your own gym. It's like you said, it's kind of nice like. You're having a visitor, like it's nice to be welcoming and not.
Yeah, I had to say, about a year ago, I traveled. I went to Toronto, which is like 6 hours away, so it's not really a super big visit. But anyways, I went to Toronto, and there are like tons of jiu-jitsu gyms in Toronto and tons in the area that I was going to. And I literally just picked a random one that I've never been to before. I don't know who teaches there. Sent an email saying I was coming, and when I got there, the person at reception said, yeah, it'll be $20 to roll. And in a way, I was kind of like I don't really want to give you $20 to roll for an hour and a half. And then I asked to speak to the instructor, and the instructor ended up coming, not talking to me, talking to the receptionist. And I still had to pay $20.
Wow.
And it was like kind of weird. And it, like I spoke to the professor afterwards, and he was super nice and super down to earth, and he was happy to have me there. And I do understand it's a business, but if you're traveling and you're coming from far away, obviously that's not the best situation to say because I'm coming 6 hours away. But if you're on vacation and you're going down south, or you're going somewhere in the States, or people in the States coming to Canada, it's nice to be able to go somewhere and be like, hey, I'd like to come train at your gym. I'm from this gym and I'm just passing through it and this and that. And it's nice to kind of not have that pressure, you know what I mean, of having to fork something out of your pocket. But again, it's a business. People will still charge. It will happen. So I'm throwing that out there to all the gym owners out there that if Raymond Terrence sends you an email or Brianna Ste-Marie says, we'd love to come train at your gym, try not to charge us $20. I'll have the $20 on me. I will pay it if you really want me to. But we'll have better rolls maybe if you don't charge me the $20. So we spoke a little bit about your training, weight cutting. You spoke a little bit about your nutrition. Do you have any other type of preparation that you do before going into a big tournament? Are you someone who's always stressed out before going into a big tournament? When you get there, are you like freaking out and you're pacing back and forth? Or are you someone that's more calm and collective and you have ways to kind of keep yourself calm and collected before you compete?
I mean, I guess I'm like a little bit calmer in the sense that like it's more routine now. So there's like some comfort in the routine. Like I'm used to the routine leading up to a big tournament. That being said, like 2-3 days like leading out, like just that constant feeling of like wanting to vomit is always there, you know. Can't shake that. So I'll always show up like in the morning of, and no matter how prepared I am, no matter of any of those other factors, like I still feel that like in the pit of my stomach, you know. I mean, it's just something to overcome. Like at least now I know, like I said before, I know that at least when I step on the mats, I'm like comfortable, and it is like, it's been such a routine to do this tournament. So I have the usual things I always do. Like I always do the same kind of like meal prep schedule, like to cut weight. So there's comfort in that, but no matter what, I think it's normal. Like you're not stepping out. I compare it to rugby. I used to get nervous for games, but never like I did for jiu-jitsu. In fact, like I think going to my second tournament, I actually made my boyfriend like pull over on the highway because I was like, I'm either going to vomit or I'm going to shit myself. I don't know what's going to happen, but I just don't feel good. I don't know if I'm ready for this, but yeah, I think with rugby, you know, you're going out, you have your team, you know, by your side. So if like you lose the game, like it's not, you know, it's the team lost the game. You didn't lose the game. You go out into a jiu-jitsu match, like if you lose, like no one else lost that match except for you. Like that's 100% on you. It's like 100% your mistakes, you know, and you have to, I think that jiu-jitsu is beautiful in that way, that you have to own up to your shit. You know, you can't hide behind like, oh, I think it was, you know, her mistakes that led to us losing the game or this and that. No, like you stepped out on those mats, like you didn't perform, or the other person just outperformed you, you know, whatever it may be, like.
And everyone will go through that. Everyone will have a shitty bus ride home, car ride home, flight home, where it just didn't go your way. Yeah. And if you're okay with it and you do fly, drive, or whatever, find your way back on camel or whatnot, if you're not thinking about what happened and you don't feel bad about it, then why did you compete in the first place, right? It's you're taking it to heart. You spent money. There's a lot of prep that goes into it. So it's obvious that you're not going to feel great if things didn't go your way. But things have clearly gone your way recently, Brianna. So that's good. So Brianna, I want you to shout out all your social media. I know you have a big following. If there are any people that want to sponsor an athlete out there, Brianna is looking for it. She's a student. She competes a lot. She needs the money. She needs the money. So if anybody could help out in any possible way, maybe just let people know how they can reach out to you.
Yeah, for sure. So you guys could just either follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is Brianna SM, or you can send me a message there. On Facebook too, Brianna Ste-Marie. Honestly, anything would help. I do have a sponsor right now that helps me a bit, Fuji Sports actually. I'm super grateful to them. Fred at BTT West Island also does a lot for me. Always grateful towards him. Yeah.
Great. Awesome. Well, thanks very much for being on the show. I appreciate it a lot. I'm going to try to do something for you at Let's Talk Jiu-Jitsu podcast. We're going to see if we can get some sponsorship going to help you out a little bit. But thanks very much for coming, and you're welcome back anytime.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I had a great time.
You've been listening to Let's Talk Jiu-Jitsu with Raymond Terrence. Go follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page. Turn on notifications and press that like button. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the mats.